working with, society as a social worker?
Sure. So I am originally from Iowa. I grew up in a very, very rural county in Iowa, and my mom is a Lutheran pastor. And so from a very young age, I was involved in church mission trips, efforts to improve the community, and that was very much instilled as a value in our family and in kind of the greater culture of my family and friends. So in college, I worked out in Colorado as a camp counselor at a camp called Sky Ranch, which is really in far northwest Colorado.
I've heard of Sky Ranch.
Yeah, and was told about this really cool program in Denver that I needed to try once I graduated, called the Urban Servant Corps. And the Urban Servant Corps is a full-time volunteer program. So volunteers live in a community house, and they share all of their resources. And for a year, they volunteer for free at a nonprofit in the central Denver area. So I enrolled in the program and was placed here at Denham, so Denver Urban Matters,
Yes.
As the urban education coordinator. So I then was on the giving side of folks coming to Colorado to do service and mission trips. So did that for a few years, and went and got my master's in social work at the University of Michigan, and then came back as the community relations director.
That's exciting. So your path was laid out before you, and we're very fortunate to have you now. How long has Denver Urban Matters been in existence, and could you tell me about Denham or Denver Urban Matters?
Absolutely. So we were founded in 1981 by a group of rabble-rousing pastors who were finishing up their education at Iliff School of Theology. And together they really wanted to come up with a concrete way to impact poverty in the Denver metro area. So they worked with a few different Methodist churches, Epworth United Methodist Church, Grant Avenue Methodist Church, and we're doing community organizing in the community, finding out what people needed, what services they didn't have access to, how they could be helpful. And from there created a plan to found Denham. And at the beginning we were founded really as a funder, which we didn't know for many years. It was a part of our history that kind of fell to the side, but initially we were funding services that were underfunded. So food pantries, clothing banks throughout town. And after a while we realized, hey, this isn't working. Why don't we create our own programs and centralize those efforts? So that was really our program impetus. But throughout that entire time, we were providing tours and education about poverty to the broader community. So that education and advocacy has always been really central to our mission. That we're not only bringing services to those in need and making sure we're addressing those needs, but also making sure the community is aware of the issues folks face. How can you change poverty if the people aren't aware of why it exists in the first place?
That is so true. And with poverty and with such a need, I mean, how are you made known to the community? I mean, how is your marketing done to the community?
When it comes to our services, we don't do any marketing. I can't imagine if we did what that would look like. But people know of us from word of mouth and through reputation. So we've been in this location for almost 20 years. And because we're along Colfax, people see us on the bus and say, hey, I wonder what that is. People walk by. They see folks leaving with food and they say, where'd you get that? And they get sent back down the street to come in. So it's mostly word of mouth. And then, of course, we're on resource and referral lists for other places, too.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So the community is aware of you. So, and then others come in and welcome to come in and just find out what you offer. So that's good. What would be something you would like people in the Capitol Hill area to know about them?
Absolutely. Well, I think what surprises folks is, one, we serve the entire metropolitan area. So in times of great financial needs, so during the recession, we were serving folks as far south as Parker, as far north as Boulder, which it breaks my heart to think that folks were traveling that amount of time and distance to receive food in our food.
Have been working here 26 years, is that correct?
Correct.
That's a lifetime of work. But prior to that, where are you originally from, and how did you come to become the executive director?
So I grew up in the Chicago area, and grew up in a family with 11 siblings.
Oh, wow.
So when it was your time to leave home, you had to do that, so there'd be room for everybody else. I'm kidding, but and I think part of that experience gave me the sense of community and people, and that we took care of each other. So in a big family, the expectation is you take care of your younger siblings.
That's right.
And so I think I got that sense of care from my parents, from my older siblings who took care of me, and then knew how to do that with the younger siblings. After that, I was in ministry for a while with a church, so served in an inner city church for a while, and then moved out to Denver, where I met my wife, and found St. Francis Center basically because we were at a gathering, a party with some friends, and met a man who worked here, and he said, well, I think we might have an opening there.
Oh, wow.
So kind of happened upon it, and it's been certainly a real gift for me in my life to be able to be here in a good community of people who are very like-minded in terms of service and caring for others, and similar values. That it's a really strong value for all of us at St. Francis Center that we treat each other and everyone that comes into St. Francis Center with the dignity that we think certainly God puts in our lives.
Exactly.
So it's been kind of a journey finding my way here, but it's, as you say, it's been a lifelong work here, many years, and my wife's a volunteer here because she believes in what we do here. My kids volunteer as well, and so it's kind of a family experience that they all feel like the people here are important people. And I think that's what's been most important in my life, is to say that it's not only what you own or how much money you make or how big your possessions or how many they are. It's who you are as a person. And I find that each of the people that comes here, whether they happen to be homeless or they're a volunteer or they're one of the staff or one of our board members, each is due the same type of respect.
Yes.
I've learned a lot from the people here. Many homeless people have taught me things. I remember one gentleman during the winter, I was right near him, and somebody came up to me and said, I need a coat, because it was like 20 degrees and pretty cold outside, and this gentleman didn't have a coat. And before I could get the words out of my mouth, this gentleman came up and said, I have an extra coat. Take this. And the gentleman did.
Yes.
And so that generosity, which people might think, homeless people, well, they have nothing, so they can't be good to another person, and yet there's this spirit of generosity that people have because they know what it means to go without.
Yes.
And when they have a little, they're willing to share it. So it's just it's a wonderful experience to see how generous people can be who have very little, and yet
Yes.
they count it as a gift to be able to give to others, and they know the
value.
feeling and the value. And I'd say we also see that in our volunteers, many of whom come and say, well, I've lived a good life, so I want to give to others. And many of them have come back to me and said, I thought I was coming here to give,